Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This is Friday with Fran. I was running late and I just told my husband, "Oh, I gotta hurry up and get on hashtags and limits." I mean, Friday with Fran. I don't know what I'm doing. Um, so if you are joining us for the first time, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy or learn, well, actually, both enjoy and learn from us. I am Shelley Kino. I am a former special education teacher. I now run my own education consulting business focusing in special education. And tell them who you are.
I'm Fran.
Okay.
I'm a mom to a couple kiddos who have different needs, and I happen to have a few unique needs of my own as well.
Yeah. So every week, or we at least try every week to get together and we just chat about things related to special education, having disabilities, that sort of thing. And we try to encourage and uplift, and hopefully, you learn a little something along the way, too. So today, our topic is kind of a heavy topic, but we try not to shy away from those because those are part of life. So today it's when sad or bad things happen. Um, and both Fran and I, well, and really the whole world and our country have had some sad things going on. We've all been dealing with the pandemic for the last 2-ish years. And so that's something that's affected all of us around the world. And then here in the United States, we've had some mass shootings. We've had COVID numbers increasing again in certain areas. And Fran has had something very sad happen to in her life lately. And I have some family members going through some things right now that are also sad. So we're just going to talk about kind of how we get through all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So do you want to share first?
Do I want to share first? Never. Uh, well, my sad is I had a death of a very dear friend, and
Sorry.
that was really hard because it was expected but not expected. So, um, part of me wants to take these emotions and feelings and just shove them away into a corner and ignore them. But I know that at some point they're going to pop out.
Right.
And so instead, I've been trying to handle them as they occur. And there are times of joy and then there's times of sadness.
Hi,
So,
Mom.
um, so those, um, and then it made me think about it because my son, who also was close to this friend, um, the only way he would understand that she had passed was to take him to see her in the casket. And I have been working prior to my different needs. I worked in the field with developmental disabilities, and we would have deaths, and my kids were very close to those with whom I worked, for whom I worked actually. And the only so from a young age I would take them to funerals because it was important I felt for them to be able to say goodbye in their own way, and it also helped provide a concrete way for my son to understand that they no longer were here with us living on this earth. And so I did that again with him, and I hadn't prepped him, and I realized that as we're walking in.
Oh,
He knew we were at the funeral home, but he didn't know why. And
gotcha.
as we're so all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I guess I should have told him, but I hadn't had opportunity prior because my son lives in a group home, and I didn't want to just tell him on the phone. I wanted to
Right.
be with him when I told him. So I told him briefly prior to rounding the corner to where the visitation line was. And then when we got to the casket, he goes, Mom, I sad. I said, Bubby, that's okay to be sad. He goes, I really sad.
Yeah.
He goes, that's my friend. And I said, yeah, that's your friend. I said, and he goes, we pray? I said, well, you can pray with her, over her, but she can't pray with you anymore because she's in heaven with Jesus. He goes, oh, I sad. And then he goes, I want to be with Jesus. I'm like, well, we all, I was like, we all do, but I really don't want you to be with Jesus right now. But
Right.
I said that's very valid. That's and understandable that you want to be with Jesus as well.
Yeah.
I said, but my friend is with Jesus now. And he goes, oh, I said, Mom. And so that was his overriding words. And as we were going through the line, then he saw somebody he knew um, at the tail end of the visitation line. And he wanted to bypass everybody else. But also, it was about teaching, following proper etiquette and letting
Right.
him understand that there's things we have to do. We can't just run amok, and we have to show honor and respect to those there who were mourning the loss of their loved one.
Yeah.
So he went through his emotions and he said something to each of the people in the line till he got to where he was really wanting to go. And so that was how he handled his sad. And he has called me a couple of times, and he would say this person's name and said, "They dead, they died. Yes, they
Yeah.
have. They've got." He goes, "They with Jesus," and so he has processed it, and so that is how we have always handled death with my son.
Mhm.
And some people may not agree with that or understand it, but for us, that is what has worked, and it works for him, and he gets it.
Right. Yeah. I have a cousin who he had never gone to a funeral until his, I think it was his grandmother passed away, and he was in his late teens, early 20s, and it was very jarring to him to
Really.
have never been to one prior to that. He was just very lost as to how to feel, what to do, um, and we've done the same thing. We've taken our daughter when loved ones or dear ones have passed away. We've taken her, when she was little on. And when my dad passed away, she was only 10. And so, she came to the funeral home and hung out with us for a few hours. And, she went through the whole everything the next day, the actual day of the funeral. And I do think that that gives that closure and that it helps. It's not easy, it's not comfortable, it's certainly not fun, but
Mhm.
I think that exposing at a way that they can understand. I'm not going to suggest that everybody do that because I think that it could be very traumatizing for some people, no matter what
Right.
age they are. I mean, I know funeral homes and funerals in general can be very traumatizing. Um, but I mean, I think like everything, it is an individual type of a situation, and you have to know your own children. And you also have to know, I think, yourself and how you're going to handle when they have their reaction.
Right. And also, so yes, I walked through with my son, and it was pretty much more. We went quickly through the line of people there, and then he went home, and then I went back in,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to then do my own goodbye.
Right.
So I allowed him to do it in how he needed to, and then let him go home where he would be more comfortable, so that I wasn't being pushed and pulled in ways that weren't comfortable for me when I wanted to spend time saying goodbye.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that you're not mentioning your daughter. Did she not go?
She did not know her very well.
Okay.
And I gave her a choice if she wanted to, and she chose not to.
And I think
So
that's a very good choice on your part to give her that and then honor whatever she chose.
yeah.
Because she's certainly at the age that and understandableness. That's probably not a real word, but I just made it one. She understands enough about what's going on that, I
And
think.
she did. I when I told her and let her know, she did. She cried, and um, I held her, and we did all that at home.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what she needed. But she was given the choice, and um, and in the same aspect, I didn't give Luke the choice because he needed that closure and wouldn't
Right.
have understood it. If he would have understood me telling him, then that would have been different.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I was kind of headed with my understandableness or whatever word I said. And yeah, I mean it is difficult. So when they were little, um how did they respond? Like, can you remember the first one you ever took them to, that, or what did you
Um,
say to them that maybe
uh,
helped them get through?
well, Bubby always would reach out and touch the person in the casket and talk to them and let him know that he was there and in his own way, or say bye in his own way. My daughter, she was a little more reserved.
Hmm.
She but she would say her goodbyes and then move on. She never lingered.
Right.
Whereas Bubby would linger and talk and
Yeah. And again, I think that's so important to honor how each of them dealt with and how each of them processed their own emotions and the situation. And I think it's very important, no matter what age the child or what the developmental or the mind level is, that we allow that.
yeah.
um, I have a friend who, when I was teaching full time, she was the one of the counselors that would come to the school. And a friend of mine, a different friend, a neighbor actually, it was her mom, I think, either her parent or her husband's parent, I can't remember which, passed away, and her kids were having a really strange reaction. It was the first person in their life that had passed away, and I say strange. It was strange that they were reacting this way, and the mom was confused by it. So she told me about it, and I said, well, I don't have any real experience with that because both of her sons had learning disabilities. So I reached out to the counselor at the school and I asked her, is this kind of normal? Because they didn't really have like big, huge reactions to
Hmm.
learning of the loss of this person. And to my neighbor, to the wife, she thought that was like they didn't understand it. And so what my counseling friend said is that kids especially will deal with it, big things like that, in small increments. And she
Hmm.
said, like, just imagine that they have like a shoebox, and that person and those memories and everything that they're dealing with is in that shoebox. And they will take it out and they'll open it up and they'll deal with it for however long they want to deal with it at a particular time. And then they'll close it back up. And she says, and then just imagine them putting it in like a shelf in a closet and then closing the door. And then they don't think about it for a while. And then when the next time it kind of hits them, then they'll go back and they'll get it out of the closet and they'll open it and they'll feel it for however long. And then they'll put it back. And, she said that could be a lifelong thing that they do. It could be a few months, and then it's dependent on again every child and how they deal with it. But in general, that's how she had seen it happening with
Hmm.
kids that she had worked with.
And that reminds me of um, when Luke gets sad. He or he has the feelings of sadness. He doesn't quite know how to say that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but he'll say, "I miss Bailey," which is one of the dogs that have passed away,
Mm-hmm.
or "I miss," and he'll mention another dog,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes through. Or if he starts listing them all, he knows, he's really struggling right now. But
Right.
that's how he equates sadness, and he knows that they're no longer there, and this is the feelings I had when they passed, so therefore this is what I'm feeling. So I'm just going to tell you I miss them.
Yeah.
and 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 then you have to realize, okay, what's going on that's causing him this, and how do we help him in this season, not rush through it, but find out why he's feeling that way, acknowledge that they're real feelings, but help him also take them away from the death of the animal and put them into the real life, the here and now, and what's really going on.
Yeah. I think that's awesome that you recognize that, because as how many times have I said behaviors are communication, and with him specifically, like you just said, he can't always, and kids in general can't always say, "Oh, I feel sad because blah blah blah," or "I feel blah blah blah," because they don't have the words yet. And so
Mhm.
to recognize that, oh, when he does this behavior, it means this thing. And to then do that investigative part and figure out, what is going on right now that might be causing these emotions, these feelings, these behaviors to come out, and then dealing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you handle being sad?
I think it depends on, for me personally, the size of the sad and how directly involved I was or am. Um, Losing my dad, I'm still not over that. I do tend to relate to that whole shoebox closet thing,
Hmm.
because I will still have emotions, and especially around his birthday, or certain dates when things happen. His birth date and his death date are a day apart.
Oh,
Um,
really?
and so, yeah, it kind of hits us, at the same time. And the other dates that, like when we found out about his diagnosis, or when we celebrated a certain thing,
Hmm.
those dates. And sometimes I don't even know that it's the date of that thing until I'm like, why do I feel so down today? Why have I, for a couple of days been kind of down or kind of off? And then I'll be like, oh, what date is it? And then I'll go look at the calendar and, kind of put that together. Or, just, I mean, my dad is probably is the most recent one that I do that with. But even my grandparents who I've lost, well, no, I guess my grandmother, his mother, would be the most recent one. That was a big one. And so, you know, those dates kind of things, will pop up. But I try to feel it at the moment,
Hmm.
and deal with it, because I learned the hard way of what you mentioned earlier, that if you don't deal with them when they happen, they're going to come out at some point, and not in a good way, most likely, and maybe not in a way that I can handle at that time.
Hmm. Do you feel like society allows people to handle their sad, or you feel like society expects them to put it away in that shoebox and not bring it back out?
I think in general, it's the option of don't deal with it. Um, because it's uncomfortable when someone is sad and they're around you. And so I think rather than us be uncomfortable, we just want everybody to be happy, and they, not talk about the sad things. Um, I, for one positive thing of social media, I think that has changed a little bit, because you're not right next to the person when they're sad, but you can post when they say, oh, it's the anniversary of, or it's this loved one's birthday who's in heaven, or, this is the day, whatever. You can comment, hugs, prayers, thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a little bit more acceptance of it because we're not standing right next to the person and having to feel that sadness with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So what do you think what do you think the answer to your question is?
I know that personally, I have reached out to those that just lost, that were family of my friend, and just in simple ways have reached out to let them know that I'm here to walk out their sad with them,
Mm-hmm.
but not in an overbearing calling them,
Right.
but because we can text each other, just shooting off a text saying, hey, I'm thinking of you, I'm praying for you, I'm here.
Yeah.
And just leave it like that. So I think, and in some ways, that's how I'm handling my sad with the loss of my friend, is knowing, but when the tears come, I've been letting them come, and when the um when the when the joy comes, I'm smiling and laughing and remembering at some of the funny things we did, because we did some seriously. She and I took road trips together.
Yeah.
We would load up in the car and go, and so I mean, you get all kinds of adventures when you go on road trips.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, I smile at that, and I remember, and I giggle, and I laugh, and sometimes cry all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's interesting. I've discovered in the last couple of years that you really can feel two things at the same time. It's confusing and tiring, but it's possible.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can comment in that second and go on with your life and not have to deal with the other person's sadness. Yeah. Um,
True, Mom.
and, I think what you're doing is a good example to your daughter because she can see you processing it and she can see you going through it and see that it's okay to have the feelings. I think, we talk a lot about, like the whole month of May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and we talk a lot about having feelings, but I still think we're really far away from being okay with people having feelings other than happy or joy or excitement or,
Mm-hmm.
as far as being with them during those times of having those feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking about, well, we've had mass riots. So a lot of people got together, expressed anger at the same time.
Certain feelings, but even those, you have to be willing to be. You have to be having those same feelings to be okay to be together.
Right. That makes sense.
And I think that's like visitations, wakes, that why they're so important is you're all experiencing those feelings at the same time, so that you're walking them out together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I sat and watched, there's a lot of people just stood around and talked, and it wasn't a run through the line and you were done kind of thing. So it was
Right.
a lot of sharing and walking it out together.
Yeah. And I think it's good to share the happy moments that you've had about and with the deceased, because those memories are the things that are going to carry
Mm-hmm.
on and continue to hopefully bring joy, and eventually hopefully you have more of those things happening than the sad moments. And I certainly do have that with my dad. He's been gone 11 years. Yeah. And I certainly don't spend every minute sad, and I have more happy memories when I think about him. But I do still have the sad memories and the sad
Mm-hmm.
moments. Um, my best friend just went through not a death, but another sad but happy situation all at the same time. And I kind of, if it's okay, I kind of want to move off of death.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of experienced a similar to what my best friend is going through. Her youngest child got married, and now she has a completely empty nest, and she had this many kids.
Uh-huh.
So, she's like, I'm so happy because, he's found his true love, and, I'm so happy for that. But then I'm so sad because he's not going to be here. None of my kids are here anymore. And for the first time in, well, let's see, I think 30, I'm married 30, she's 34 years, she and her husband have a house to themselves. And I went through that when Violet moved out. I'm still going through that. It's not over.
Uh-huh.
I still get my moments when, I walk to her room, or I look at my phone, and, it's like, oh, no text message, no message. Oh, I can't just go to her room and talk to her. And, so handling that too, that's another sad thing. And that's that feeling both things at the same time, that, you're really excited for them because they've grown, they're out, they're doing the thing, but you're sad because they're not in the house with you anymore. So you had a small-ish experience like that when Bubby moved out.
Yeah. It was, or even just the other day, so I was commenting to somebody about how it was such a struggle when he moved out, but it's been such a good thing for him and for my daughter, well, and for me as well. It's been life changing, and so but at the same point, there are times when I wish it would be simple just for us to get together as, okay, we all load up the van and we go. But
Right.
There's a lot more coordination that needs to go on if I want him to be included in something.
Right. Yeah. And
So,
I mean, we kind of have that with Violet because she lives 2 hours away. So, 2 hours away. And, so yeah, if we want to see her, we can't, like I said, we can't just walk down the hall. And we do need to find out, where are you working, or what are your plans, or, if she's going to come. She actually has been home a couple of times for graduation things and whatnot. But, yeah, if we go on a vacation now, it's like, oh, well, if Kevin and I go somewhere, she's not here to necessarily take care of the house anymore, or Jonas. So, what are we going to do? Who's going to do that? And so, yeah, kind of figuring out all of that stuff. But it's part of life. Like, death is part of life, unfortunately. But, yeah. So, do you have any tools? Because we talk about our toolbox all the time.
Yeah, I actually had something written.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
Not written, but ready to go up. What's in your toolbox? Do I have tools? I have tools. I always have tools. Do you have tools?
I always have
many tools.
I have tools. I am just not sure that they're. Yeah.
Are you getting something with which to write?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Not that I'll ever do anything with it beyond this, because look, here's still my list from the last time we talked about toolbox and what goes in it, and I haven't made a graphic out of it yet. I need to give you, not that you have any more time than I do, but I need to give you permission to my account where I make my graphics.
Yeah, your graphics are really neat recently. I meant to tell you that. I've enjoyed them.
Thank you. So
what's in your toolbox? Give me a tool.
Tissues.
Hey, that's a cheat. That's an easy one.
Lots and lots of tissues.
And being okay to use those tissues.
Yeah. Yep. Give me a tool in your toolbox.
Talking.
Oh no. Are we doing alliteration?
No, I didn't even think on that one. No, really talking, chatting, speaking it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did want to say this. I thought of this earlier, and I wanted to make sure to say it is when a loved one passes away, speak to their loved ones or their friends about them. I know so often I've heard people say, "Well, I don't want to bring up the one who passed away because I don't want to make the ones who are still here sad." But I have found, like with my dad, with my grandma, that when people start talking about my dad or my grandma, that makes me happy because they're sharing happy moments. And yes, I miss them, and you're not making me any more sad than I probably already was. You're not reminding me that they're gone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I know that they're
Right.
not here.
I like that.
Yep, that's a good one.
Writing to the person and then tearing up the letter when I'm finished. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, that's a good one. I have to write that one down.
Being in the moment.
What do you mean?
Don't rush through. Don't rush through whatever feeling you're having. Allowing yourself to have that feeling and to process it.
Yep, I think that's good.
Your turn.
No, that's all. That's all the tools I have. Photos. Like a literal, we have photos of my dad and my grandma around the house and other loved ones that have passed on. We have photos, not that she's passed on, but we have photos of Violet.
Yeah.
And we had photos up of her when she was still living here. So, but yeah, just, that smile that they had in that photo. And then that, when you look at it, it takes you back to that happy moment when that picture was taken.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. Come on, Mom, you're falling behind. Your turn.
Yeah, you gave us that really good one to start with. Now what?
I think for me is reaching out when I'm in a sad place. Reaching out to somebody and being okay with admitting that I'm in a sad place and I need this. I need your help.
That's big.
I had to do that recently. I had to reach out, and it took me a really, really long time. But once I did, I was glad I did.
Yeah,
and it was important that I did that.
And it's, as we usually, if not always, end the show, that you're not alone.
Right.
Even if you feel alone. And you can be surrounded by people physically, but still feel alone. And just bring out the good memories, sit and think about your life together with that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just remembering.
That's good. Good one, Mom. Good job. I think it's your turn.
Oh, counseling. I know you kind of mentioned talking, but I don't think that you were
professional.
Talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay to have a third party who doesn't know the person, to help you process your feelings, especially if it was, I think, somebody that you were super close to, or if you've never gone through it before. I mean, when you lose a parent, when you lose a spouse, when you lose a best friend, when you lose a sibling, when you lose a child, all of those are different. And you respond and react to them differently. And I've seen counselors for gosh, off and on since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And they've always been helpful. Not some as much as others, but they've always been helpful. Not the one you mesh with.
I get it. You know what I do in times when I'm sad? I do something that's enjoyable for me, whether that's like crocheting, reading a book, sometimes even mindlessly scrolling through the internet.
Yep.
You know, just something that's a comfort for me that's doesn't require a lot of extra thought.
Right. Yeah. I have found too, and I never, ever thought that this would be a comfort to me. I lost many loved ones in my life before my dad passed away. And I never went to visit the grave at the cemetery. Mm-hmm. But I have found, and I've maybe only done it a handful of times in that whole 11 years that dad's been gone, but I have found that if I really need to have a really good cry, that going to the cemetery to my dad's grave has actually helped me do that.
Oh, good.
It doesn't help with anybody else. I mean, going to the loved one's grave, other people's, but my dad's, it does. So again, it's, I guess for that, it's that difference.
I've done that with clients that have passed away, and mm-hmm. and just had a conversation, or when they came to mine, and I just went there and had a conversation with them, and then went on about my day. But it was one of those kind of.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of people that does bring them comfort to go even daily, and, or often, and put flowers out or put memorabilia out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this one. Go for a walk, or in her case, to a specific park that they used to go, brings her a lot of peace. Yeah, so go to maybe a favorite place that you went to, or a place, maybe it's not a favorite place, but a place where you had a really good memory with that person.
Mm-hmm. This toolbox is going to be really full.
I know.
It's good stuff, Maynard.
It is. I haven't heard that saying. I haven't heard Maynard in a long time.
Sorry. It just.
No, that's okay. It's good.
You know what? Just as Yanko came and plunked in and then walked out, spending time with an animal mm-hmm. is very therapeutic. Whether it's a cat or a dog, a rabbit, a ferret, a mouse, a rat, a horse. I'm
just going to put spending time.
Some people have snakes. Oh, Alice said I forgot bird. So, but just something about living animals is therapeutic.
Right.
I mean, they have therapy dogs, actually.
Right.
That are brought in for certain instances, and so.
Yeah. Along with individual counseling, you could find a support group.
Yeah.
And those you could easily find. Again, social media has been helpful for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a support group for every situation. And if there's not one for your situation, then start one. And I bet there's other people out there that need what you're needing. Yeah.
So do you want to recap what we have?
Yeah, my I wrote that one down already.
Your chicken scratching.
So yeah, see, this is my list. So writing a letter to the person and then destroying it afterwards. Just remembering the person, being in the moment and letting yourself feel the feelings. tissues, talking to other loved ones of that person, or just to that person, looking at photos, reaching out to someone and telling them that you need help, counseling, support groups, doing something you enjoy, visiting the cemetery, going to places that bring you happiness that you shared with the person, going for a walk, spending time with animals, being in nature. Did I miss any?
No, I think you got it.
So, what do we do though? Because we have lots of other sad situations that happen in life. Or do you think we still need to finish this one? Do you think there's more to talk about?
No, I think we're
Okay.
good.
So, for example, the school shootings. You know, something that isn't I mean, for some it obviously was directly involved, but how do we deal with those? How do we help our children deal with those?
I think the important thing is being honest and truthful and not minimizing them.
Yeah.
I know often we want to protect our loved ones and don't think they have the ability to understand. And so we don't address it at all. But then they hear it somewhere else. And I would much rather they hear it from me than to hear it from the world.
Yeah, I agree. I would prefer that myself as well. Because you can control what they're hearing when it comes from you. And you can set that foundation for them to balance or bounce off of what they're hearing outside of home to what they're hearing from you.
And you know what comes to mind? I want to tie it into the toolbox thing that we just did because I want to add it there. I pray.
Oh, yeah.
About. I wanted to add that tax to the toolbox, but I also, for this instance, I pray about how I'm supposed to share it with my loved ones. How in what detail and to what degree.
Right.
So I seek wisdom.
And wow, Mom is busy today. Mom is with us.
She is on target too.
She is.
I love that. Meet them on their level and age appropriateness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is so, and that's why it's so important that we share it with our with those that we need to, because we know what level at which they are, instead of someone else sharing it who might not know their level or what is age appropriate for them.
Yep. That's very true. And I often hear, well, they don't understand what's going on, so it's okay that they watch or hear whatever it is that they're watching and hearing.
But they do.
Yeah. And even,
they may not understand it the way the world understands it, but man, they sure understand it.
Right.
Because
and
their behaviors show it.
And they could be misunderstanding what they're seeing and hearing because of their developmental or their age level. And it needs to be explained to them in a way that they can understand it at a level that's appropriate for them and understand it correctly. And, you know, it's awful, the things that are happening in our country with these mass shootings. But I think we also have to remember that they don't happen everywhere, every day, all the time in our country. Now, unfortunately, there are places in the world where they do happen much more frequently, and in a much more violent manner than even what we've had here.
Mm-hmm.
But for us here, I think the being honest, the being age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, meeting them where they are, and like in the cases of the shootings, there's a lot of things that we can talk about that are sort of peripherally related. Like if this happened, this is what maybe teach them some self-defense, or maybe teach them, be aware of your surroundings, or there we can turn those things into teaching moments and recognize maybe flaws within our own personal situations that you can't, I know you can't always, well, in fact, I don't think you can at all know if somebody's going to come and do a mass shooting, but unless they have said they're going to, and even then that's not a guarantee. But maybe what to do in an emergency situation, what to do if there's a tornado, what to do if there's an earthquake, what to do if there's, that sort of being prepared talking.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that too much? Am I too peripheral?
No, I don't think so. Because everyone has the ability to understand to some degree. But I think it goes back to what your mom said, is meeting them at their level.
Right. Yeah. And we do it in our schools. We prepare, depending on where you are in the country, you prepare for hurricanes, you have tornado drills, you have fire alarms, you have, unfortunately, in the last decade or so, you've had active shooter drills. Earthquakes. Thank you. Yep. And
I think it a lot of it keys off of situational.
mm-hmm.
Who's around, who's going to be around, and how it's broken down.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it is important. Firefighters will tell you this, and this was something that we had discussed with Violet when she was little, like, okay, if there ever is a fire in the house, these are some options to get out. If your door is hot, then you don't go that way, you go through the window. And if you have to go out the window, then you have to go to this neighbor's house. And well, actually, we had the same neighbor's yard that we were supposed to meet in if we ever had a fire. Thankfully, we never had to actually live out that planning, but it was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure if you asked her today, she could still tell you what neighbor's house she was supposed to go to, or just say, where were you supposed to go if there was a fire? And she could tell you.
Yeah.
And, so I think when because they are fearful, but I think planning helps relieve some of the fear, because we can't control those kind of situations, but there are things that we can control within the parameters of a possible situation. Am I saying that right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Planning displaces fear.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have an idea of, okay, if this happens, this is what I should do, that gives you a little bit of control in an otherwise uncontrollable situation. And kind of the same thing, maybe going back to when we were talking about the death, that is talked about. Like you said, and with your friend and with my dad, we knew it was coming. And so if you have young children and you know that even if somebody's not sick, but say they're getting really up there in years, you may start having that conversation of, preparation. But if you don't think they can handle it, of course, then don't. But
Yeah.
Maybe figure out a way to explain it to where it's not scary and it's not that they're going to think it's going to happen tomorrow.
So what just came to mind as you were talking about that was just when things happen and we see them on the TV, how do we address these things so that they don't um, fill someone with fear, but rather give them understanding, I think. That's what I'm asking.
And I think some of the stuff that we talked about is, like, and I think that's it's a very important conversation to have no matter what you see on TV. Like if you're watching a movie and someone dies in the movie, that you explain to your children, that wasn't real. Those are actors. And you kind of go through that, because I think kids see actors dying in one show or one movie, and then they see them in another show or another movie, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess, they came back to life, so death isn't permanent, because it's that understanding level again. When it is something that is real, I think being honest at an age appropriate level, and then providing, like letting them feel their feelings and then decide based on what their feelings are, how much you talk about it and what kind of planning you need to do to help them feel a sense of control.
Well, I can give you an example of where it kind of has gone astray with Luke. All of the animals that we've had that have had to be put down due to illness, cancer or whatever, he was always there at the vet and said goodbye. But Bailey, he wasn't there with, because it happened during COVID, I think. So he missed that. So he really doesn't quite know if she's gone.
Right.
Because he didn't have that. And so he still occasionally will ask for her. And it's like, no, remember? No, I don't remember, pretty much is what he says.
Okay.
Because he didn't experience it that way. So that object permanence concept is coming out there.
Yeah.
But so in the same way, knowing how, that's why it's important to take him to the funerals. That's what, because he needs that. I know he needs that. Whereas, like we discussed, my daughter doesn't need that.
Right.
So it's being individualized, I think, is the key. Is whatever needs to be individualized to that individual, not to that population.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Absolutely.
Because so many people always say, oh, Down syndrome people are so loving. And yeah. I before I deck the person, I go, okay, they just this is what they've heard, so we're going to leave it at that. But I want to say, well, do you want to see the bite mark here, or do you, from different instances of people with Down syndrome with whom I've interacted. So I'm just like, we cannot clump it. That would be like saying all redheads are
hot-tempered.
I was waiting. I was going to let you come up with whatever it was. Yeah. So, but is that true? No.
No? I don't think so.
it's
No,
not
I know
any
it's,
more true
I
than
know.
so I think it's important to see the individuals. And I think that's
Absolutely.
what you and I talk about so importantly is everyone is an individual.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. In every situation, not, um, you know, yes, we categorize and we clump people together for our brains to process some of the information a little bit easier, but we have to remember when we're dealing with a person or a situation to not to pull them out of that clumping together with others,
Mhm.
because every moment we're all a different person than we were the moment before, because something that happened the moment before has affected who we are now.
Yeah. So did we cover everything?
Oh, probably not, but I think we've covered a lot.
We have a toolbox.
We have a large toolbox this time.
Very full toolbox.
Yeah, very full, definitely. And it wasn't, I didn't feel as heavy as I was expecting it to be. How do you feel?
Oh, it was heavy for me, but the death was recent for which
Right,
I was speaking. So it
right.
was heavier.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and again, I am sorry for that loss. I know that poor person was like family to you, even though you weren't biologically related to that person. And I know how much she meant to you, and
Thanks.
very, very sorry for that loss. And for anyone who is dealing with a loss or a sad situation right now, we will once again reiterate that you are not alone.
Right.
You can reach out to us via, you know, Facebook or YouTube. Just send us a message on one of our Friday with Friends and say, you know, can I private message you because I would like to talk. I
Yep.
unfortunately get a lot of spam and a lot of people sending me things to spam me. So I do need you to be a little specific. Like, hey, you said on Friday with Fran that I'm not alone. Talk to me, please. You know, because otherwise, if you just say hi, I may not respond. Um, so so please give me some more information so that I know that you're an actual person and not a spammer.
Yep.
But it's time.
It's time. Is
It's
it?
time.
Okay, I guess it
It's
is.
time to say goodbye. We need to have an ending song like it. It's what was it? There's been lots of talk shows that have had ending songs. Like I'm so glad we've had this time together. Who was that? Was that Carol Burnett? I'm
I
so
don't know.
glad we've had this time together. But I don't remember the rest of it.
I have no idea.
Okay. Maybe that was before your time. But
It could
anyway,
be.
we will be back next Friday, I believe. Are you planning on being there?
Um,
Are you going somewhere?
Actually, no. And your mom said yep.
Okay.
It has Special Olympics. We are at state games.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, then we will see you in 2 weeks, unless something
Sure.
else comes up. I don't think we're on vacation yet. I don't think we
Okay.
go on vacation for like this or maybe even this many weeks. So, all right. Thanks, Mom, for all the interaction. And
Yes, for
thank you
sure.
to whomever else was watching. We very much appreciate you being with us today. And we will see you next time.